You're listening to the Big Boy Radio Show presented by Automax Ocala. Contact the show via Twitter at Big Boy Radio.
It's Thursday. I should feel a little bit more excited than I do, because this weekend is kind of the weekend that molded me as a college football fan. Florida State, Miami and Florida State would play each other. You just felt like the winner of that game had the inside track to a national championship. There is some optimism amongst Miami Hurricane fans, and maybe some trepidation amongst Florida State fans when you kind of take a look at what it is that they've done this year offensively and defensively. Not the same as last year, certainly. And we'll talk about the Miami Hurricane angle right now with our good friend Danny Money of CanesInSight.com. He joins us each and every Thursday to talk Miami Hurricane football, and he does today. Danny, good morning. How are you, my friend?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Doing well. So this weekend, this is normally a weekend that Miami and Florida State fans get excited for. I think that though a heated rivalry, there's a mutual respect amongst the two schools because of what they've accomplished in years past. But let me start first with a text message I received earlier this morning claiming that there are websites out there that are deleting threads about a potential injury of Duke Johnson. Have you heard anything about Duke being injured at practice or banged up at practice at any point this week? Or is that, just strictly message board stuff that needed to be deleted and just rumor that people were starting?
I looked into it when the rumor popped up. He took a hit. He sat out for like a couple plays, came back. I think everything is full go with Duke Johnson. Canes fans have nothing to worry about from everything I'm told.
That's positive. All right, well, good. We can continue this interview then, because now we'll ask questions about how Miami has a chance to win and things of that nature. Because if you'd have said, no, Duke's out for the game, then we'd have gone ahead and wrapped this thing up, I believe. So let's start there. All right, Duke looks like he's healthy. Obviously, he's going to be a major part. He's going to play a major part. If Miami's to knock off Florida State, Duke Johnson has to have one of the games that he's been having over the last few games of the season. Needs to do that against Florida State to help carry this Miami offense. How much is he looking forward to this game? Because this is the game he was injured in last year.
He competes hard every game, but certainly with the bright lights, the fact that he was running really well against FSU last year, then, of course, had the season-ending ankle injury. I think that's going to put a little extra motivation in Duke Johnson. And then just the fact that, he's having such a great season, performing so well. He wants to put on a show in front of everybody and show exactly, what he's about and possibly make a late run at the Heisman. It's still within reach. He has the numbers to support that kind of campaign. No one's really seized that award. So if he comes out against Florida State and has, a Duke Johnson game, 180 yards, 200 yards from scrimmage, big touchdown, highlight plays, that would certainly put his name right in the mix of the Heisman.
We know that Florida State can score points. Do you trust Duke Johnson and Brad Kaya and this Miami offense to maybe keep pace with Florida State's offense?
I think they'll make plays. They've made plays against everybody they faced this year, except for, of course, the Louisville game, where really the game plan was so conservative that Brad Kaya in his first start really wasn't given a chance to show what he can do. But since then, he's been very consistent as far as making plays, throwing the ball in the end zone. Duke Johnson is Duke Johnson. So as far as keeping pace, it depends on what the defense provides and how time of possession goes. But I certainly feel that Brad Kaya is capable of making plays against Florida State. Florida State's defense is not what it was last year. Statistically, it's actually lower than Miami's defense, although I don't think you have many Miami fans that would be willing to make that trade. But, that's what this week is for, to see how far Miami's defense has come along and to see what FSU's defense is really made of.
How about all across the offensive line? I think that's always a concern when you've got a young quarterback playing against the defending national champ. And if you're looking to get Duke Johnson going and the wide receivers down the field, the offensive line needs to step up. Having Eric Flowers back would be a huge boost to that. Apparently, he's running with the first-team offensive line. Is that correct?
Yeah, Eric Flowers will play. I expect to see a rotation, which is not unusual. So you see Eric Flowers at tackle. You'll see John Feliciano at guard and tackle. And you'll see Trevor Darling, most likely a true freshman, playing at tackle. He played very well last game, and is looking like he is going to be somebody you can count on to perform competently in this game. So Miami's offensive line has been a strength all year, even though they are playing two true freshmen with Nick Linder and Trevor Darling. Both guys have acquitted themselves very well, have played in big games, and have performed. So that's a unit that's been a strength for Miami. They're going to count on it to continue to be a strength against the Florida State defensive line that has underachieved but has the potential, to play big in a game like Saturday's game. So to me, that's the key matchup, which is Miami's offensive line against Florida's defensive line, and conversely, FSU's offensive line, which has underachieved a bit this year, versus Miami's defensive line.
Defensively for Miami, is there anything different that they have to do this week to stop Jameis Winston in this offense? Or, would you trust the defense to keep doing what they've been doing the last 2 weeks to match up against this FSU offense?
Jameis Winston's a different animal than the quarterbacks that Miami's had success against this year. You see Anthony Boone, Marquise Williams. These are guys that just do not throw the ball as accurately as Jameis Winston does. I know Jameis has had struggles with interceptions, but he's still Jameis Winston. He performs well when the game is on the line and is able to make those plays. So if they're just going to sit back and wait for Jameis Winston to make mistakes and throw the ball inaccurately, that's not going to happen. I think against a quarterback like Jameis Winston, with the way FSU's played, you really have to bring some pressure up the A-gaps. They've struggled there with that interior pass rush. Miami has linebackers that can get to the quarterback up the middle. I think that's an area where I'd expect Miami to attack. Also, you look at FSU's wide receivers. Aside from Rashad Green, they're an inexperienced group. A lot of guys that this time last year Miami was recruiting. So this is not an experienced wide receivers core like you see with the Miami Hurricanes. And I'd expect Miami to use their cornerbacks, who are a talented group, an experienced group, to really get in the faces of FSU's receivers and try to disrupt the timing, because FSU is a timing offense. To the extent you can play aggressively with your corners and disrupt those young receivers, I think that gives you your best bet against Florida State, along with bringing pressure. They need their front four to get pressure without the blitz, but when they do blitz, I like the pressure coming right up the middle to fluster Jameis Winston.
Danny Money, CanesInsight.com, our guest here on the Big Boy Radio Show. Florida State's been a bit vulnerable right up the middle now. It looks like they're going to get their starting center back. It seems that when teams blitz Florida State, to blitz them straight at Jameis Winston over the center seems to be the recipe for success there. Is that something that D'Onofrio, we're not gonna go all out on every single play, but we may blitz more than we're used to blitzing, because against other teams, Florida State struggled to pick this thing up?
Well, it's about being effective when you do blitz. Obviously, FSU still has a ton of speed on the outside, and Jameis Winston's a big play quarterback, so you don't want them to make those explosive plays. At the same time, you need to disrupt the timing, and you need to keep them out of rhythm. So really, it's about being effective when they do blitz. They've had success in the last few games as far as being effective on their pressure packages. They had a lot of success with the corner blitzes. Artie Burns had a sack last game. You saw Cornell with the sack. Deion Bush is able to get to the quarterback from the safety position. So the key is really just making those blitzes count when they get there. And to the extent they can win individual matchups on the defensive line, that'll be huge. Florida State's offensive line was billed as one of the top offensive lines in the country coming into this game. They have not lived up to it whatsoever. Miami's not the most dynamic pass rushing defensive line. Obviously, you have on the first two downs a nose tackle like Calvin Huertalu. Well, Mike Weiss is not much of a pass rushing threat. On third down in the nickel package, they put more pass rushers on the field. I think that group, guys like Chad Thomas, Fambu Kamalu, Anthony Chickalo, they need to win on third down when we do go to that nickel pass rush package. And then when the blitz does come, they need to be effective, and they need to tackle Jameis Winston. That's not a guarantee that even if you get there, that you'll bring him down. As we saw last year, when a couple big sacks by Al-Quadin Muhammad, Winston was able to avoid and make big plays. So not only do you got to get there, but you got to make it count when you get there.
The line for this game right now it moved up a little bit. Originally it was 1.5, and then this morning I'm seeing it's at 3 in FSU's favor. Do you think this game will be pretty close throughout 4 quarters?
It's hard to say. It's certainly shaping up that way when you look at how Miami's played at home, how FSU has played this season, really most games to be close, the motivation Miami's going to have, and really the talent level that Miami brings, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. Miami is the most dangerous offense that Florida State has played all year. So, FSU is so schizophrenic, and really Miami is too on the defensive end, that it's just hard to say what teams are going to show up. But if Miami's defense is executing well, tackling well, making FSU earn it, it's certainly going to be an interesting game. You have an offense with Miami that is really coming into its own. Brad Kai is no longer a freshman quarterback. He is the leading touchdown maker, 4 quarterbacks in the ACC right now. He's leading the ACC in yards per attempt, quarterback rating. I mean, he's not just playing well for a freshman. He's playing well for a quarterback, and he has great receivers, the best receiver group that FSU has faced. So you could see it being a close game. But, again, you're talking about an FSU team that hasn't lost in quite some time against an unranked Miami team. So last year was a close game in the first half, ended up being a blowout in the second half. FSU's offensive line really took over. Brian Stork dominated Miami in the middle. If Miami can control that matchup or at least put up a fight throughout the game, I think you could see a close game.
Have the fans kind of come back down to earth a little bit? Is there plans for another banner to be flown over Sun Life Stadium during this game?
I think the banner plans have been curbed, but I'll tell you, this game is now a huge game again for the fan base, and that's a good thing for everybody. And really, what it does is it puts pressure on the coaching staff to perform. Fans now expect to play well. The rest of the nation expects it to be a close game, as you can see from the spread. So if Miami goes out there and lays an egg, the heat will be on Coach Golden probably more than ever, and it'll be even louder than it was after the Georgia Tech loss. And if Miami wins, Miami fans are going to be in a totally different place than they were a few weeks ago with Coach Golden, and with good reason. So it's a huge game for everybody, and it's nice that it's a game that means something, because it didn't look like it was going to mean something 4 weeks ago.
Danny Money, CanesInsight.com, the best in the business talking Miami Hurricane football. He does it with us each and every Thursday here on the show.